All right, welcome back from break, everybody. We're now going to switch over to the main course shell, and we're going to go through the introductory materials here. The first little entry here is essentially what I sent you guys in email format in the form of an announcement. All the announcements that I make appear in this sidebar thing, and it should also pop into your student email account. I do think it's important that you guys check that student email account often when you're taking your class, just in case I have an announcement, something's going on. I would recommend you check it daily. You can load up that email account onto a device. I think that's helpful too. I will not attempt to contact you at a personal email address unless you give me express permission to do so. The school really prefers that we contact you strictly through school mechanisms, and email would be the primary one. There's a little bit of information here. A lot of this stuff we've already talked about, and I have a little info here about myself, and I'm going to skip over this. And let's move over to the hardware recommendations. Already talked about this somewhat, but I do want to get maybe a little bit more specific about the kind of system that you might need. Generally speaking, I do recommend that you use a Windows-based system. Can I just ask real informally here, is there anybody here that's on a Mac? Okay. Anybody running a Linux distro or anything weird like that? Okay, none of those people. They're a special breed, by the way. And what about is anybody here working on a Chromebook, a tablet, or a phone? Okay, so the first thing I will warn you is not that it's not possible to code on those devices, phones, tablets, or Chromebooks, but they are not full-blown computer systems and are limited, right? And I would strongly recommend using them. They can be helpful though, like if you have a desktop, and a lot of people, especially like gamer types, will have a desktop, all this killer gear, and the one thing they don't have is a camera, right? Because they never, use that. And so in that situation, you can use your phone or a tablet or whatever as your camera and microphone. That's allowable. And you can be in the Zoom session more than once. So you can connect more than one device. One real strong recommendation that I have for hardware, if you're not already doing this, is to connect a second screen to your computer. It's particularly useful when you're doing a Zoom class. You can take all the Zoom stuff and, take my annoying face and voice and put them on the other screen. And then you can do your coding or gaming or whatever you're doing during class on the primary screen. It also is kind of, I equate it to like, when you have a desk with a really large flat open surface, you can lay more stuff out and look at more stuff at once, right? Right now I'm only using 2 screens, but there are times when I ramp it up to 3. You don't have to run out and buy a really fancy second monitor. In fact, one tip I give people is, hey, just run down to like Goodwill or St. Vinny's. They might have an old one there that you can plug in. Most of our laptops have secondary connections, as do our desktops. And that second screen, you might just throw stuff up on the screen to look at it, or like I said, the Zoom screen or something like that. It really helps to accelerate your workflow. It keeps you from having to like flip screens and tabs and programs. And when you can just look at all the stuff at once, I think it's very helpful. In terms of the type of gear that you should be running, I generally tell people that you should be running a system that's modern, usually within a few years old. When you're not, you will find yourself hampered. And one place we'll discover it very quickly is when we're doing our software install, and like how some people will be like, yep, I'm done installing. And other people like, no, it's still downloading, and it could take a while. So it tells you something about your internet connection, but it also tells you something about your hardware. Generally, when we're doing coding work, regular consumer level machines really are not adequate. And this is kind of a bitter pill for some people to swallow. So you can't like walk into like Walmart and buy that $300 laptop and think you're going to roll through school with it doing coding work, right? It might work for writing a paper, watching Netflix, and being on Facebook, but it's not going to be powerful enough to do some of the things that we do, especially when you get farther into the program and you start doing things like virtualization or running a big heavy IDE like Visual Studio Code. So you need good processing power, plenty of RAM, and lots of hard drive space. Um, if you want like specs, I can get into specs if you wish. I on a Windows machine, I would say 16 gigs is a functional minimum these days. You will notice that I list 8 gigs of RAM there in parentheses, and I only say that because I have a couple little MacBook Airs that only have 8 gigs of RAM on them, but they're screamers. They do great on 8 gigs of RAM, believe it or not. A Windows machine, not so much. If I were to run out and buy a machine these days, I would say 32 gigs is where I would start for RAM, right? More RAM gives you more space and memory to work. Applications run faster, things execute more quickly. I also recommend that you have a modern CPU. If you're using any Intel chips, I'd say 10th gen is about as old as you want to go. You can use older ones if they're really souped up. But I think these days we're on like 12th, 13th gen chips already. And I would look at i5s, i7s, i9s. I'd stay away from Celeron chips or anything like that. Ryzen chips are fine too. The AMD varieties, most of those are good. I also recommend that you have a system that's got a solid state hard drive because the performance gain with those is significant. And if you're looking for a size recommendation, 250 gigs, I'd say is the absolute minimum. 500 gigs is okay. A terabyte or more is really better. When we get to installing Visual Studio later, if you, as I do get some students sometimes that do this, so like, I'm just going to install everything. I'm going to caution you, don't do that. A full install of Visual Studio with every possible plugin is like 100, 200 gigabytes, right? Think of like Battlefield times 5 or something like that in terms of like disk space. What we will install here tonight will probably take 20, 30 gigs of space. So you have to plan accordingly. So one thing you might want to do is look at your file setup on your machine and see how full your hard drives are. And you can see I kind of run some of mine pretty tight. The general rule of thumb is you should have at least 10% of your disk space free, especially on your primary drive. And you can see I'm almost at red line on mine, right? When you get to that point and see my Google Drive here, which connects to my Gateway account, I don't have a lot open there. But when you start redlining, things start to not work right. So that's not really a good situation to be in. If you're in that situation, consider getting a second hard drive. A lot of our laptops these days, especially Windows machines, do support the addition of a second hard drive. Or you can just upgrade the hard drive and get a bigger one. And if you do, make sure you get an SSD because the performance is that much better. Also, make sure that you're using an updated operating system. Windows 10 is currently going out of support right now. They're going to extend support a little bit, but generally speaking, you want to be on Windows 11 if you're on a Windows system. If you're on a Mac, whatever the latest version of the Mac OS is, I forget what the code names are these days. And keep your systems updated with the operating system. So whenever they're asking to update, you should update. Most of those are security fixes and stability fixes. And therefore, I recommend generally that you do that. If you are on a Mac, you will have some challenges with the software. The primary piece of software that we've been using is available for a Mac as a legacy installation. They put it out there for a while, and it was never built for Macintosh, but they did put it out there for Mac, and then they kind of rescinded it. And they've done this a couple of times. So generally speaking, if you're on a Mac, I'm going to probably recommend you use Visual Studio Code. Or if you have a powerful enough machine, and I think, Megan, you were a Mac person. I think you raised your hand. You could also run a virtual environment like Parallels or one of those kind of tools where you can run Windows inside of your Mac and then run Visual Studio inside of that. That's an option as well. I would prefer to see you run the software natively on your system. But, there's trade-offs, right? The other kind of interesting thing is, this concept of like virtualizing an operating system is not abnormal. Some coders out in the professional world never code on their native hardware. They always spin up a virtual operating system and code inside that environment so they don't pollute their host operating system. That's a whole strategy for development. If any of you have any questions about this or need help or don't think your system's adequate in some way, just let's talk about it. Pop me a question and send me an email or whatever. I know a lot of people, as they're starting school, they run out and buy machines and then find out later they're not good enough. And I can give you some recommendations, generally speaking, but I think if you follow the tips I just said, you'll be fine. All right, let's get into the suggested software and let's get to the point where we're kind of installing it and playing with the tools. We are going to be working with a language called C#. C# is a variant of the original C programming language, which was developed, I think it was first developed back in the late 60s or early 70s as the Unix operating system was starting to take off. And it was the programming language that they used, really kind of well into the 90s and the 2000s. And it is still, the C language is still the primary language for developing operating systems of all flavors, most notably Unix. Windows, of course, is an operating system that's anomalous in the IT world. It just so happens that most people on the planet use that operating system, like something like 90% of people use Windows. And then the rest of the people use Linux or the Mac OS, both of which are variants of the Unix operating system. The C language has evolved over time. So it started out as just being called C back in the 70s. And then eventually they came out with C++, which was ramping up the capabilities of the language. And then Microsoft developed their own variant. The people at Apple developed their own variant, so we came out, like in the Apple world, they use Objective-C, and in the Windows world, we use C#. It is a unique language technically, but it follows a lot of the same coding conventions that you see in other C-style languages, namely that we put curly brackets around things and we use semicolons to terminate statements, generally speaking. The language is strongly typed and does require very specific tools and libraries on your computer in order to operate and compile and create executable code. The three tools that we recommend here at wctc, and the one that I prefer out of all these is Microsoft Visual Studio, which is the full-blown Visual Studio coding product from Microsoft. I'm going to click through on these links in just a moment. There is a kind of like a child application, let's call it, which is a variant of Visual Studio called a Visual Studio Code, which a lot of you might already be using and maybe use for like your Python class or some other coding classes here. It is extremely popular out in the field right now. A lot of pros are using it, and you can feel free to use that one. You do need certain plugins to make C# work inside that environment. They're very easy to install, by the way. And I think the tip that I gave at the beginning or right before the beginning of class was, if you just go into that product, create a text file, save it with a .cs extension, it will start recommending, oh, you should install the C# plugin and the IntelliSense and the compiler, and you just click a button and just do it, and it works, and you are self-contained. But it is important to note, right? Like if you were a straight up real C# developer, you would be going for Visual Studio because it is a significantly more powerful and capable product ultimately, and really a professional's tool of choice. Historically, the product has not been free, but in, I don't know, last 10 years, Microsoft has released a community version, which is the one I recommend for the students because it's non-expiring. It is possible to get licenses for the enterprise and I think pro versions. I forget how they label them these days. It might be enterprise and ultimate, or I forget. The community version does basically have all the same features with the exception of a couple of like high level team tools that Microsoft includes with the enterprise version. The other product of note, and I am going to click through on this one to start with, is this product from JetBrains called Rider. And I am going to go to the JetBrains website and take you to the Rider page here just for a moment. And just a little bit about this company. This company is one that's kind of been on the rise for the last 5-10 years. Um, I was first introduced to their products by doing web coding. Um, they had a couple of IDEs that were built specifically for doing JavaScript and PHP. And I thought, wow, these are pretty slick. And then I tried it, with Python code using PyCharm, and I totally like that too. They have a bunch of different IDEs, and I'm just going to kind of click the developer tools here. So all of these things here are IDEs, so they have more than one. Their big granddaddy product is called IntelliJ IDEA. It was built originally to do Java, which is also a C style language, by the way. And that one product that I'm hovering over right now has the capability of running all the other products within it, by the way, right? So that's like the big product for them, like Visual Studio is for Microsoft. Here's the one catch: these are not free, right? Um, if you go here and you download it, you get a 30-day trial or something like that, and then you got to pay. But there's a workaround. You can click on the education link here at the top, go to the student area, use your WCTC email address, and you can apply for a student account. And I forget where they have that. It's somewhere here. Request now. Just click that link. They will send you some sort of an unlock code or something. Once you have that, you can download any of their products and use them for free, right? So a lot of people really dig Writer as an IDE for C Sharp, especially for game development. So I don't know why, but a lot of game development companies use that product. And Writer is built for doing C Sharp. Right? All right, let's take a look now at Visual Studio. So I'm just going to open up a tab here and just type Visual Studio, and that should take us to Microsoft's website. Okay, that's not what I wanted. What about just a standard Google search here? Thank you. All right, so I'm going to click through to the Microsoft website. Here's the link in the chat, by the way. If you guys want to grab that. You will notice that, right, they're pushing AI right off the bat here, which is kind of a little disconcerting. But this is how the coding world is going. If you use Visual Studio Code, and I know of several of you that are probably using it for sure already, you know that they have Copilot, or the AI chat windows, just right there. You can just click a button, bring it up, and have it help you code, right? The same is true with Visual Studio, but I want to show you that there are the two different products. The Visual Studio Code is what I would call the lightweight editor, right? Not that it's not powerful. It is very powerful, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. And if this is what you want to use, this is on you, right? This is your choice. I can help you somewhat with the install of the extensions and stuff if you get stuck on that. But it's pretty straight ahead. It really is. It's a very intelligent product. It's highly extensible, meaning they've written a ton of plugins. Like, you think of a language that you can code in, somebody's written a plugin for it and some fancy tools to help the coding, right? And you just install them and roll. The thing that is really cool about Visual Studio Code, it is truly a cross-platform product. So it works on Windows, it works on the Mac, and it works on both main distro streams of Linux. The Debian track and the the Red Hat or Fedora track. I on every machine that I own, I install this product. And I also kind of use it as a text editor from time to time. I love to code Python in it. I do a lot of web development with that product. I even do database work with that product. It is really a good product. So if this is your preference and you already have it installed, all you need is the C# plugins. And if you want, I can check mine and see. And of course, it comes up on screen number 2 here. But I can look at which extensions, which is the extension manager here, we might use right? So here's the C# one, and you can see it comes from Microsoft, so pretty easy. .NET also is one of those extensions you might add. There's a dev kit. And if I remember right, the way that I did this is I just created a file and made a new file, saved it with a .cs extension, and then it just started recommending, do you want to install? I'm like, yeah, sure, please go ahead. And I was up and running just like that. I know that I'm kind of zoomed in on this product right now. But what you can do is, if you have this installed already, is you can just search for the extensions. These are the ones that I have installed, and you can see I don't even have that many of them. It's just the dev kit, the basic C# support, and then IntelliCode, which is, as you can see, AI assisted development, where it auto completes your code as you're typing. Right. These were installed automatically. I didn't hunt them down or anything like that. All right. So this is Visual Studio Code. How many of you have coded with this product? Dakota, I know you have. Caleb, you probably have too, right? Yeah, in the Python class. Bob, anybody else use this product? All right. So this is a possibility. And Megan, this might be your go-to product, right? Because it does work really well on a Mac. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close that one for right now. And then I'm going to go back here to the main Visual Studio page where they have a download link. And I just want to point out a couple things. Don't get click happy and start downloading and installing right away, because I do want to guide you through the process. It's not necessarily a super easy install compared to some products. Not that it's not possible. I'm not sure. They have little pop. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'm looking at this little interface they have here. I've never seen it on their website before. All right. So our goal here is to basically download this. And I don't know if it just went ahead and, oh yeah, it did it. It just downloaded the thing by clicking on the link. So you can bring up that installer if you wish. I already have this installed on my system. So is there anybody here that would be willing to share their screen as they go through the install process? And then I can record your screen doing a fresh install. Anybody here willing to be the guinea pig on this? Or do I have to get a voluntold kind of thing on there? Sam, it looks like you're ready to volunteer.
I can. I only have one screen, but I can.
Okay. Well, if you're
Uh,
willing to do that, I'm going
sure.
to stop my screen share. Go ahead and hit the share button, and if you could share your whole screen, so it'll say like screen one, and then just hit the big share button at the bottom.
All right. Going through.
Waiting for it to load. There it is. All right, so I have it up on my screen now.
I already clicked the open from the downloader and it came up
Okay.
with the visual installer.
All right, so let's go ahead and keep walking through the process here. So right now what's happening is this is just downloading the installation software. Once this gets installed, then we'll be able to select all the different packages and modules that are available for Visual Studio. For those of you that are maybe not at the download point yet, did everybody get it downloaded? I guess no, maybe. All right. And you're on Windows 10, sir?
I'm on Windows 11.
Okay.
10th
All right.
generation i5 laptop. A
All right. Well,
little bit older, but it's an XPS, so it should be higher quality at least.
yeah, I'm kind of in the same range with you, except I'm on an i7. Mine's about 5 years old now, but I bought a pretty souped up gaming machine way back when. So, all
Yeah.
right. So you will get to the point where you're going to get a screen like the one that Sam's looking at right now. And the selections we make here can be made at a later time. I'm just telling you, like, so if you forget, oh, I should have clicked on whatever, don't freak out. You can come back to the installer and add the component and modify your installation at any time. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to recommend certain plugins for you guys, depending on what your path of study is at WCTC. Um, If you're in the web or software program, most of the recommendations I make will work for that. If you're in the data analytics or AI degree paths, there's a couple things that I'll have you add in as well. So Sam, here's the ones I'm going to have you click on. I want you to click on ASP.NET and web development. If you plan on doing any courses in Python or AI or data analytics, you can click on the Python development.
I think I have software architecture and Java are the last
Okay.
two, three.
All right.
So yes.
Normally I would say, you know, I think Python's a good one to add anyhow because the libraries aren't very large. I would also suggest Node.js development if you do any web work. You don't have to do that now if you don't want.
All right.
All right. The one that is pretty critical is the .NET desktop development because that's generally the space that we're working in. Um, and then if you're interested here, you can do the .NET multi-platform development as well. Those are what we call the .NET Core libraries, and those are the ones that work on Macintosh, by the way. So it's possible that you can write code on a PC and have it run on a Mac. That's kind of a new thing. Um, the and I'm looking at your screen here because it's a little small for my eyes.
Sorry.
We don't need the C++ libraries unless you plan on coding in that. Let's keep scrolling down, see if there's anything else we missed down here. And I'm going to say that the rest of this we don't technically need, but some that you might consider, like if you're in the AI or data analytics programs, the ones that are built around data storage and processing, I think is pretty important. So I would probably click that one because that allows you to do database work. And then the data science and analytical stuff is pretty helpful too. With the rest of these, it's kind of an as needed kind of thing, right? So basically, when you're doing this, every checkbox that you're checking is adding libraries to your machine that allow you to code certain types of applications or tools or connectors or whatever it happens to be. If you look down to the bottom right corner of that box, like right here, right, you see that this install is going to take 23 gigs of hard drive space. So that's something you got to start thinking about, right? Make sure you have the hard drive space. If you do get click happy and go like, oh, install everything, right? It will get huge. And I want you to notice here, right now we're on the workloads tab up here. And there's language packs and individual components and all sorts of different selections you can make here. You don't really need to mess with those. We're going to do pretty basic stuff. So go ahead and click this first button, install while downloading. So it'll be downloading some stuff as it's installing other stuff rather than waiting for the download to finish and then do the install. So the first button, oh, so you did the other one.
Oh,
Right.
sorry.
It's too late now. Right.
You wanted download all and then install.
Yeah. So right
Oh,
now
my
it's going to
bad.
download them all and then do the install. I like
There's no
doing.
backwards.
Yeah,
Click
that's what
happy.
happens when you don't listen all the way, Sam.
Oh
It's all
no.
right. Nick, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was meaning to ask there. I noticed that when you click on each one of those installs, there's little check boxes on the right side. Do we need to check any of those?
No, that's just showing you what's being installed.
Okay. Because
And,
I
and
know
if
that
there
there's
were
some that it's not checked, so I just didn't know if we needed those.
right, you could go in there and check some of those, but I don't think that's important, right? Like if any of the stuff that we needed would be in those checkbox, I would tell you.
Okay.
We're doing pretty fundamental language stuff. I also kind of want to have you ready for doing higher level work, somewhat depending on what that is. Um, and this will take a little bit of time, right? So this is still not quite like watching paint dry. In the old days when we would install this product, it would be like a 2 hour download, and then it'd be like a 3 hour install, and we would just sit there for half a day doing this.
Right.
James, you have your hand up also.
Yeah, so I went ahead went ahead of the game and download practically everything. I didn't know it was a selection that I was supposed to, but I went ahead like I would say like 3 hours ago. I just download everything,
Heck
All
yeah.
right. Well,
including what's in that list.
here's what you do, James. Go
Okay.
to your start menu and search for Visual Studio Installer, and that will take you to the screen that Sam was just on, and then you can add the missing pieces. You guys catch that? So go to the start menu, find the Visual Studio Installer. That's a separate piece of software. It'll take a moment to load up, but essentially it'll put you back on that screen, the first screen inside this install process. And Sam, it seems like you're going pretty quick. Your download rate's pretty respectable,
Oh, thanks.
right? And you guys notice, like, you see the little download speed right here, right? And that's a capital MB, right? Which means megabytes per second, not megabits per second. So that would be 6 times 1024. So like you're at like, I don't know, 60 megabits down. Is 60 to 70 megabits down is where you're at.
Good.
Right. And I know a lot of people don't care about that stuff, but the bandwidth that you pay for at home, it's kind of interesting. And as since we've got a little idle time, all this is installing. One tip I give people too, right, is like if you're working remotely, because a lot of us in this field work remotely, or you go to school remotely, if you're using like base level Spectrum internet or base level AT&T internet, something like that, I would highly recommend that you move up a tier in service level, like go to the medium or the higher level. The little bit of extra money you spend makes a really big difference, especially if your household is like mine, where like right now, I have 2 young adults and my wife, each with probably like 10 or 20 devices each that are all hitting the same internet connection while I'm zooming, and it helps to have a little bit better connection. Does anybody here use Starlink? I'm curious. Anybody out in the woods? And nobody?
I'm using Verizon 5G internet.
Okay.
I know somebody that used it. It's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I have some friends that use it. Down in our district, we cover Kenosha, Racine, and Walworth County for Gateway. We get people that live way out on the west side of Racine County or Kenosha County that cannot get high-speed internet without paying like tens of thousands of dollars to set up poles and dig holes in the ground and stuff. And since Starlink came out, all of a sudden they can work from home where they weren't able to in the past. They would tether off their phones and it was horrible. Here, like in our areas, like Waukesha County, Milwaukee County, Ozaukee, Washington County, we have really, really good connectivity in those counties, really good coverage, and we're wired up pretty well. You tend to take it for granted, by the way. Have any of you guys ever traveled like to other parts of the country or like whatever? And it's like, oh, this is your internet. You get pretty darn spoiled. I think another really interesting thing down by our engineering campus in Racine County, right down the street, like literally like less than a half mile, Microsoft is building their big AI data center there. And the reason I'm mentioning it to you guys, I don't know how many of you might be looking for work, but they're hiring in the first phase 400 full-time techs to work at that facility for phase 1. Phase 2 will have another 500 to 600 full-time people working there. And then there's a phase 3 planned as well. All the jobs are full-time with Benny's, the whole shebang. And they're aggressively hiring right now. So if anybody's interested in work, let me know and I can connect you up with the right place to go to. And I think it's really exciting because we have this like nucleus of heavy duty IT development happening right in our backyard. Ironically,
They just announced that
Yep.
they weren't that they canceled plans for that because of the public backlash, or is that something else?
That you're speaking, they were going to add a fourth facility in Caledonia right near the Oak Creek power plant. And the residents there, you know, and I think partially because they're a little more affluent, were able to say no, you know, not in my backyard, you know. Yeah, it's a very interesting demographic in Racine County, because Racine, it might have, I think, possibly the lowest per capita income in the state, and then Caledonia, which is just north of Racine, has the highest per capita income in the state, you know, ironically. Um, but yeah, they don't want to spoil their lakefront there, you know. They already have a power plant, which is kind of a thing. You guys ever think about why they build data centers in our area? Why is it such a thing?
Like Michigan.
Yeah, correct. Why?
Cooling.
Cool those things down. They have these like massive central air conditioning units, but they also use water to cool the servers. We have an ample supply of it. We also have an ample supply of electricity compared to most parts of the country. But a lot of people are concerned about environmental issues, absolutely, but it is bringing a significant number of jobs. And Megan, yeah, I would go with those. Is that what it's suggesting for you?
Those are the first ones that come up with just C#. There's a bunch more, but those are the primary ones. I didn't know if I should continue to install all the rest listed for C# or those primary ones.
Let's start with the primary ones. And
Okay.
like when you're running your code, you'll get little messages on the screen that say, hey, do you want to try this one? And then you should read up on it. Don't just say yes automatically, but you do need the primary C# library, and the dev kit are both very helpful.
Okay.
How's it going for everybody else? Anybody at the point where they're close to finished already? And James, you got your hand up again? You can just go ahead and unmute and talk.
Hey, is it possible I could share my screen just real quick? Because
Yeah, please.
like I explained before, that I had pretty much everything downloaded. It just
Yep.
I want to make sure that what do I need to uninstall in regards to
Because you think you installed too much?
yeah,
Oh, you went click happy, man. You did the whole
I
thing.
did. I did.
You know, I'll tell you what. Do you have an ample amount of disk space?
Um, on my desktop, I have about like 152, but on my SSD, I should have 2 terabytes.
Okay. I mean, generally speaking, I'm going to say you probably won't do any Azure development at this point, so you could probably remove that.
Okay.
Okay, no, you unchecked the wrong one. That was
Oh,
ASP.NET.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Scroll down a little bit. You can probably get rid of the C++ ones. There's 2 of them there.
Okay.
Um,
And this one too.
yeah, unless you're making some games.
That is true.
I would also probably uncheck extension development, Linux, Mac embedded, and Office SharePoint. There are times to use those, but you know it won't be in any of the courses you would have in the near future.
Okay.
Yeah, uncheck the Visual Studio, the purple one. Yeah.
Okay.
And then scroll up a little bit. I would get rid of the 2 C++ ones.
The mobile,
Yeah.
and this one, or the
And
desktop.
and WinUI application, I'd get rid of that too.
Okay.
All right. So it's going to free 14 gigs of space.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
That's enough room for a DLC.
So when I hit download all or something, when I check them all, it only says 43 gigs. Is that right?
That's about right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole lot more you can add, and what's kind of interesting about this product, right, is once you're inside of it, you can get really granular with it. So you can install, like for example, if you're working with Python, you don't have to install just one Python library. You can install 5 different versions, you know, that kind of thing. And it gets really quite granular depending on what you're deploying to. Sam, why don't you go ahead and share again? Let's see where you're at. And most people should be roughly in the same place.
There we go.
All right.
Slow and steady.
Slow and steady. Actually, it really isn't that long, honestly.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, we're chewing up bandwidth being online, with Zoom.
I'm
Zoom is
also as far away from my router as possible, so it's
all
not
right.
great.
I think I need to have the cable talk with you, right? Like the best way to be on the internet is to plug in with a cable.
That would be ideal. Old house, not really set up for it.
Yeah. I get it. A funny thing is the house that we live in here on the east side is a very, very old house built in the 1870s, late 1870s, finished up in the 1880s. When we bought the place, it only had like two 30-amp circuits for the whole house.
Ooh.
So of course, we upgraded everything. And since the walls were open, I was like, this is about 25, almost 30 years ago. I was like, hey, all the walls are open. You know what? I'm going to wire this house up for the future. And so I put in this bundled wiring that was 2 fiber, 2 coax, and 2 Cat 5e at the time, which was cutting edge. And I did at least 4 drops in every room, right? And then by the time we got done, like putting up drywall, Wi-Fi came out. It's like all these wires in the walls, and I'm pretty much not using them. I do use them in some spots. Good. Yeah, but I think it's pretty interesting though how the tech changes. But like right now, the machine that I'm on, I always plug in with a cable because the cable has a much more stable connection than Wi-Fi does. Right? It's not prone to interference. I don't have to worry about how strong my neighbors' access points are or any of that kind of stuff. And I think that's pretty helpful. Whenever you can plug into a wall, you should, especially at home.
I have the important things plugged in.
All right, how are you guys doing? Anybody here all done installing? The Visual Studio Code people are probably okay. Nick, you're still working on it. Maya, you're doing okay? We'll just kind of let that process proceed.
Hey, Taki.
Yes.
I had VS Code already, as you know, but I'm downloading Visual Studio Community. Does that make VS Code redundant, or you recommend having both, or what?
It doesn't make it redundant. I run both on my system, and I just use them for different tasks. Whenever I'm doing anything C#, ASP.NET, Node.js, sometimes Python, I'm always using Visual Studio because that is the better product for it. With the thing that we were talking about before class, Caleb, where you're talking about like database work and creating GUI interfaces and stuff, this is the product you really want to use, right? Because it gives you access to all the Windows libraries underneath that are native to Windows, right? Not that you can't do it with Visual Studio Code. The integration is deeper with Visual Studio though.
So I see his that like it says like installing package whatever out of 646. I don't see that for mine. I see the gig amount. I don't know, is that and I checked all the things, so I don't know if it's doing the right thing or not.
There were 2 install buttons. The one install button said install, and the other one said install while downloading, which is really the one you want to use because that way, because really what we're doing is we're installing lots of pieces of software and lots of files.
Okay.
And so the one will download and install at the same time, where the second approach will download it all first, wait till it's done downloading, and then install. Right. And I like doing the combo one because it does go that much faster. And I kid you not, like when I was first teaching this stuff and I'd have people install Visual Studio, this is before Visual Studio Code was around. It would literally be like hours, hours and hours. And our connections weren't so fast. You know, although we had so many factors fighting us. The equipment wasn't fast, but the libraries were still huge, you know. But if you have the patience to download like Battlefield, you're okay. You know, you'll survive, right? And like I said, I think it's really helpful if you have a faster internet connection, if you can afford it. I understand if you can't. Not all internet providers are the same, by the way. Sam, did Sam drop off the session here? Oh yeah, he's gone. I wonder if he plugged in a cable, right, and lost the connection. Who knows? All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen then. And at this point, what we're going to do is for everybody to get loaded up, and then we're going to take another break. So if you guys get to the point where your installation is done, feel free to just take a break. And then once we get done with the break, we'll get into materials and we'll do a little bit of demo of the product. And hopefully we'll do a little bit of coding before we leave here tonight. Right, so you're just kind of give me a heads up as to where you're at. I'm letting the recording roll. This video that we're doing right here, this one I'm not going to make it public, nor will I make the syllabus video public. But when we get to lecturing and coding, I do make those public. I just want to let you guys know. So feel free to speak freely, within reason, of course.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm at the point. I don't think I'm successfully installing it, to be frank.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen so I can take a look?
Sure. Yeah.
And Steve, I appreciate you pointing that out, right? We don't want to get you in the situation where you can't follow along, right? That's not a good situation.
Okay, where do I've shared my screen previously, but here it is. Sorry.
Right. And I usually say share the whole screen. So if it says screen one or something of that effect.
So let me go to.
All right. We can see your screen now.
Can you see my screen and can you see where I've made the selections?
Yes.
Okay. And so I selected everything you recommended except for one. It was
looks like you got all the key ones in there.
It was one that was multi-platform.
Yeah, that one there. I would go ahead and add that one.
Okay, I'll add that one.
It doesn't really, well, I guess it does add quite a bit, but yeah, so notice how it says install while downloading?
Yes.
Right? That's how you want to leave it. Now click the install button.
Okay, you just solved my problem.
That was it?
Yeah, because if you click the drop down or hit download all, it does something real quick and it goes, and then that you don't see anything. That's what it's just kind of
that's a position I was in. Yeah, that's exactly the position.
Yeah, so at this point, yeah, just click the install button and you'll get basically the same screen that Sam was throwing up. Yeah. And Sam's in the waiting room now, so I'm letting him back into the room.
And I'll stop my share. And obviously I'm behind everyone else here in the download and the installation
but you know what, Steve, I'm noticing your download speed. You have a good internet connection at home.
Yeah,
you guys, yeah, it's going about like 3 times the speed that Sam was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll catch up.
Yeah, I think you will. I mean, look at like your download bar is already at like 10% when you just started.
Yeah.
I blue screened again for some reason.
Blue screened. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I haven't had them on this computer until the last Windows update. So I don't know if something there borked it up, but yeah, I would have to roll
That's
back.
possible.
Uh,
Yeah, hopefully that's not the case.
yeah, I lost all that download progress, but I know what to do.
If you go back into the installer actually recovers pretty well. It'll notice that the downloads are there. Um, it should auto recognize them.
I think it's
The other thing you
still
do,
still
you can
coming
just,
up.
all right. Do you want to share your screen really quick? Let's take a look.
Sure, as long as let me hopefully I don't blue screen again. All right. Oh, hey, it just popped up. Okay. It was just
All right.
sitting there thinking for ages.
Okay. All right. It restores my faith in it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And that's why they have a standalone installer software package, because it has that capability. Right. Because that was
Yeah.
one of the complaints in the old days, is we would do the download, something would happen, your machine would go to sleep, and then you'd have to start it over again. It's like, oh my God, what a nightmare.
Yeah.
This
That's
really
why
isn't too bad.
I thought that's what it was going to be. But she's rolling.
All right. And you're one of those people that watches your log files.
I wanted maybe some something to let me know why it died.
Well, I appreciate that you do that. Most normal humans don't tread those waters, by the way, but you're amongst your peers here. So
Sometimes
welcome to
there's
the
good stuff.
the geek collective, sir.
Yikes. I don't know. I don't think this is exactly where I want to be anyway.
Yeah, so some of those tools, though, like that tool in particular that you're running, it's a plug-in console or whatever for Windows management. They can hit your resources pretty hard, while you're doing other stuff too. So
yeah. Well, I mean, it crashed right in the first 10 minutes or so of Zoom calling too. So I was like, it's going to be one of those days, maybe.
well, keep in mind there are hiccups on the internet the last day or two, so
That's true.
that wouldn't cause a blue screen, though. I mean, I got to think about it in that regard.
Yeah.
And not all software is compatible with all systems, unfortunately. All right, you guys getting close? I mean, I'm assuming if Sam blue screened and came back and kind of recovered, most of you are getting to the finish line at this point. Is that a fair guess? Some of you have like a painfully slow internet connection.
Crickets.
Right?
I had already
I
downloaded
should be
mine,
good.
but then I came back and added some of those packages. So my modifications just finishing up.
Yeah, I'm just uninstalling as of right now. So I should be good.
Yeah, I'm just installing packages.
I think mine's good. But I'm in VS Code.
Well, Sam's getting close, so I'm assuming most of us are getting there. As I said, if you guys have it installed, feel free to just step away and take a break. And my goal would be let's shoot for like 9 o'clock for kind of getting into moving forward here. But I like doing this during the class session rather than, casting you out to the wind and saying good luck, because that way we can solve the problems. I mean, right? As they're occurring. And I mean, it's not to put fear into the process of this, but this is one of the reasons why people choose Visual Studio Code, is because Visual Studio Code, you can install that in like 2 minutes, right? And then as you're working, it prompts you to install the tools that you need. This is the other way around. But this is the professional grade product. once you do get into the product, here's a helpful tip. They're going to want you to sign into the product using a Microsoft account. Now, most people that are on Windows probably already use some sort of Microsoft account to log into their system. So usually an email address. And if you don't have one, you can sign in with any account that Microsoft considers valid, including your student email account at WCTC is considered a Microsoft account.
Okay.
So that's just helpful to know. You don't have to sign in, but I think they turn off some features if you don't. And if you have let's say a professional license for this, where you're working, let's say in an institution, it does allow for multiple sign-ins, so you can change profiles while you're running it. And then Sam, it looks like you're going to be in the mode now. Your download's complete. Now it's just waiting for the install to finish. So what we'll do here is let's go ahead and do a 5-minute break. We'll come back at like 9:02-ish, maybe 9:03. And when we get back, I'll do a little bit of lecturing about concepts and stuff. And hopefully by then everybody's installers will be done. And then we'll start tinkering with a little bit of code.
Fingers crossed.
All right.
Sounds good.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. Actually, now I have a pause button for my video, which I didn't before. My goodness. Okay. So I think I'm actually going to stop the video though, and then we'll start a fresh one when we get back.
Sounds good. Thank you.